We're reading about one of the most famous suicides in all of literature, by an author so significant that his lifetime is often known in Germany as the Age of Goethe. When Goethe wrote The Sorrows of Young Werther, he was only 24 years old, and there are autobiographical elements to the story. We know that Goethe lost out not only in one, but two love triangles in which he was besotted with a young woman who married one of his friends instead. In an unrelated incident, one of Goethe's friends committed suicide, dying by pistol shot, and one way we can approach this novel is as Goethe's attempt to understand what happened in that incident. The Sorrows of Young Werther was a bestseller after publication in 1774. It was translated, it was pirated, and it gave rise to an early example of mass merchandising. There was porcelain decorated with characters from the novel. There was a perfume called Eau de Werther. You could buy silhouettes of Lotte. It even influenced fashion. And its fans adopted ritualistic behaviours around things like pink ribbons and canaries. There were also imitators. Several young people in Europe committed suicide and were found with copies of Goethe's novel in their pockets. Nowadays, the phrase Werther Effect is used when a suicide appears to give rise to copycats. Mindful of this risk, authorities in the city of Copenhagen banned Goethe's novel. But the University of Leipzig went one better, not only prohibiting people from reading The Sorrows of Young Werther, but also outlawing the so-called Weltschmerz uniform, by which people dressed up in imitation of Werther.
Sorrow and discontent had taken deep root in Werther's soul, and gradually imparted their character to his whole being. The harmony of his mind became completely disturbed. A perpetual excitement and mental irritation, which weakened his natural powers, produced the saddest effects upon him.
In Milan, a conscientious bishop bought up all available copies of The Sorrows of Young Werther to ensure that they wouldn't fall into the wrong hands. This book gave rise to a fanaticism which has been called Werther Fever. But what was it that early readers found so powerful? For one thing, Goethe's novel gives voice to changing values. Werther himself is a man of feeling. He is a sentimentalist. As such, the novel was plugging a kind of gap. We think of the Enlightenment as the age of reason, of cold-headed logic, but this was a changing picture. As the 18th century wore on, there was increasingly a consensus that emotions should complement reason. Emotional participation in the experiences of others encouraged benevolence. In particular, early readers enjoyed Werther for offering a new language of love as a subjective experience. In the craze for Werther, then, we can detect some of the democratic energies in Europe, which in 1789 would give rise to the French Revolution. The danger in the text lies where the reader unthinkingly adopts Werther's subjectivity, whereas Goethe, as I'll say more fully later on, intends the reader to maintain a critical perspective on the character. The emotions, like taste, must be educated. Unregulated, they can be destructive, dangerous. Think of the point at which one of Werther's supporters, the Count, writes to him, urging him to moderate his passions. As I'll say in part 3 of the lecture, Goethe's novel is a source for Freud's theory of melancholia. Goethe encourages the reader to maintain a critical distance from Werther, in particular in the 1787 text, and he does so by introducing new episodes which tend to illuminate aspects of Werther's own experience, and also by expanding the character of Albert, who is this sort of cool-headed opposite to Werther. I'm going to focus on the 1787 text, offering as a starting point an observation of Albert's, communicated by Lotte, that it is the impossibility of Werther's love which makes him so devoted to it.